Yes, sir.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Dirt Road. That's the Dirt Road behind us. You never know where we're going to go. We just let this conversation go on and on and on. We have a plan, but we don't have a script. That's Mike over there.
And this is Mr. Rick.
What's up, baby? How you
What's
doing?
What's going on, sir?
We're going to do our weekly headlines this week. We usually have some fun with this. In this particular episode, I picked out 5 current events, articles, things that are happening, going on. Mike doesn't know what I'm going to bring up, so he's going to give like his raw opinion. Obviously, don't fact check us, or him at least, because he hasn't read what I'm bringing up. But we're going to get his raw opinion and then my reaction to that. And then, of course, what we really want is your opinion. Right down there in the comment section. And we will respond to you. We have been calling out, shouting out, I guess would be the better word.
Shouting out the people.
Shouting out the
comments,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, so we just did that in our last video. We shouted out a couple of our viewers. Hopefully they're subscribers. I have no way of knowing, but they commented. And we called them out by name and we reacted to their comments. So anyway, these are the weekly headlines. Today is what? September 28th?
28th, I believe.
Something like that. On the end of September. So we're coming on about 40 days.
40 or so days from the election.
Yeah, 40 days. About as long as Noah took on the ark.
Wow, that's right, yeah. That's right. Good
As
point.
long as Jesus was in the wilderness.
As long as Jesus was in the wilderness, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So that's where we are with things. And I do feel like we're in the wilderness, I'll tell you that. Being tempted by you-know-who.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that in the world today.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
A lot of that in the world today.
All right. So, for those of you who don't watch the Dirt Road, you may not know, but my number one issue is foreign policy. That, to me, is, and I've said this before a million times, the economy can be fixed, inflation can be fixed, the border can be fixed. You can't fix debt.
That's true.
And we have a president right now who, in my opinion, just my opinion, in the last 4 years has done more to damage world peace than I can really think of any other president doing this kind of damage.
Yeah, he's definitely got himself a record.
Yeah.
The amount of death he's caused in the world just by his own weakness.
Yeah, and weakness, stupidity, just miscalculation.
Ineptitude,
I'll give him credit. Just miscalculation. Let's put it that way. I'll be nice.
Who was it that said this guy's been wrong on every foreign policy thing?
Bob Gates. I think it was Bob Gates.
That's it.
Who's not a partisan dude. He was Obama's Secretary of Defense, and he was also W's.
Yeah.
But all right. Anyway, so the first couple of headlines, Mike, do have to do with foreign policy.
Okay.
And this one I found pretty interesting. It's 2 things in one. So Vladimir Putin made a brief statement a couple of days ago. So back in 2020, every country has a nuclear doctrine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, every country that possesses nuclear weapons
right.
has a nuclear doctrine. In other words, what's allowable?
Yeah.
When are you allowed to use it?
Like
right?
a standard of engagement, yeah.
So Russia's was pretty standard. It was updated in 2020. It's if the country is in existential threat of collapse, being taken over by another country, or of course, if they're nuked first.
Yeah, it's the second strike doctrine, right?
So he updated Russia's nuclear doctrine. This is as per Reuters, so this is not some wacky, crazy
some
thing, right?
A website that doesn't exist kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, so this is from Reuters. Vladimir Putin made a statement changing his nuclear doctrine to where he added, if any country were to attack Russia, if that country is backed by a nuclear power, Russia has the right, in their doctrine, to use nuclear weapons to fight back on that. In other words, he's saying, America,
Ukraine.
Britain, you send those Ukrainians into my country with your weapons, we consider that an attack by a nuclear power, even though Ukraine doesn't have any nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Just as a corollary to that, Mike, and I'll get your reaction on that, but just an added thing to that, it wasn't in the exact same statement, but it was within a couple of days where Putin gave a war guarantee to Belarus. Now, we have war guarantees to something like 30 countries out there, right? And NATO, and then they had other ones. So, gave a war guarantee where he said an attack on Belarus will be considered an attack on Russia.
Yep.
So, those are the 2 big changes in Russian doctrine right now. War guarantee to Belarus, and that they are allowed to use nuclear weapons if a non-nuclear country backed by a nuclear country were to attack them. So, your thoughts, my friend?
Well, I think, this comes out obviously the last few days. Last week you had...
Roughly, yeah, a few days.
Right. So last week you had the U.S. basically authorizing Ukraine to use long-range weapons inside Russia. And then the response to that was this, Putin putting a very clear red line in the sand there and saying, don't do that, you know? So, I mean, I guess it's not a surprising response from Putin, you know, saying, listen, we're not playing this game, you know? You're not going to use Ukraine as a proxy to attack my homeland directly. We're not doing this. And he's basically sending a message to Washington and to the West in general saying, you know, enough's enough, you're not hitting me here, you know? And that's kind of his red line in the sand. He's letting them know, he's putting them on notice, like, you guys are really playing a very dangerous game with me. And listen, Putin, for whatever you think of the guy, that's not the guy you want to play games like that with, you know? Because he's not going to blink, he's not going to bluff, he's not going to do things like that, he's not. I mean, he's already proven that, the invasion of Ukraine, right? Remember when they were all massing on the border by Ukraine? And every talking head, no, they'll never invade, this, that, the other, whatever, all these nonsense things that were being said. And here comes Biden's administration, you know, just the fumbling idiots they are, just doing everything possible to make them invade. And what happens? They invade, and then Biden and all the war hawks get the war they wanted, you know, the proxy war with Russia.
So I have to challenge you on one thing you just said. You said Putin's not the man to do this to because he won't blink. But he's blinked at every red line Putin has made. Biden has crossed. And Putin has not really reacted. And that's what troubles me, is that at some point... See, I think Biden's gambling. And he's gambling with our lives here. Because he has gotten away with crossing the red lines. Putin did say the same thing about the F-16s and about the, the Storm Shadow missiles if they go into Crimea rather. So he has drawn red lines before, and those lines have been crossed. And I think Biden is banking on being able to do that forever. Which is a bad gamble.
I think you're absolutely right about what you're saying. I agree with you 100% what you're saying. My thing is this, though. Putin hasn't changed his nuclear doctrine and then set a red line before.
Right. That's why I brought this up. Yeah.
Yeah. That to me is like, okay. So those ones before, Putin was like, look, don't do this.
Yeah.
And they did it, and he kind of tried to work around it some way. So I think, and as weird as it is to say, in some sense, he's been reasonable to a certain degree. Not that he's reasonable, he should have ever invaded, but
right.
I think he's, in his mind, been reasonable to this point. And this is the point where he feels like it's no longer reasonable and he's not going to tolerate it.
Yeah.
And I think this is the legitimate, no shit, no break point. You know, like this is the point where he's like, enough.
Yeah.
And I hope that somebody in the Biden administration has enough sense to realize that that's actually the case. And doesn't go sending long-range American or even UK missiles flying into Russia, because I don't think it's going to end well at all.
I don't think any of this is going to end well. I hope I'm wrong, obviously. You know, this is the one time I want Biden to come out a hero. Hopefully everything he did turns out right and this thing ends. I don't see it. I just think this is bad.
I think he's backwards on everything.
And the point you just made was absolutely right. Good response to my statement where I said we've crossed every red line, and what you just said was a really good point. No changing the nuclear doctrine.
That's a very clear signal.
Yeah, and that's not something that's
like the biggest red light you could put out there, you know?
And the war guarantee to Belarus, again, you just have to speculate here. I'm thinking he has intelligence telling him that the Ukrainians are planning some kind of incursion into Belarus, which wouldn't surprise me one bit. I don't think the Poles will, unless there's an all-out war between NATO and Russia. I know that the Poles have amassed troops on that border and everything, but I don't think Poland's going to do that. I do think, again, it's just speculation, I could be 1,000% wrong. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Ukrainians go into Belarus, with, of course, our blessing, because Zelensky does, let's be clear about something, Mike. Zelensky doesn't make decisions.
No.
He doesn't make decisions.
No,
okay?
Victoria Nuland does, Anthony Blinken does.
Well, she's gone now, but right, that group, yes.
Well, Nuland went to, some think tank, whatever, it was just a euphemism for, the State Department's apparatus without all the restrictions. That's really all it is.
But if Zelensky wants to change the hand he uses to wipe his ass, he has to call
talk
NATO.
to them first, yeah.
So let's be clear about that.
Yeah, he's a puppet.
All right. So. Anyway, what are your thoughts? I would listen. I could talk for 2 hours about this particular thing, but
I just want to put one thing on that Poland thing. Sure. Poland's massing on their border had more to do with defensive positioning and stopping the refugee people trying to push in.
Yes, there were a lot of refugees.
And there's nothing like, I didn't think Poland was very careful about the kinds of troops and where they placed the troops to show that it really was only a defensive kind of maneuver and not an offensive one.
Fair
I
enough.
think Poland's trying their best to kind of say, listen, we're not trying to spark off a land war here. We're just trying to protect our people.
Fair enough.
You know, so
Fair enough.
I give them credit for what they're doing.
Yeah.
Belarus, you know, Ukraine can't hold half of its own territory. Why are you invading other people's? Fight back for yours, man. Stop.
Well, because they have our blessing, and I've said this before, and again, I can't prove it. Everything I'm just saying here, guys, please don't
This is all
yell at me. It's
speculation
just
on our part,
speculation.
guys.
None of us know. Look, there's a war going on.
Yeah.
And in a war, you got three things. You got propaganda,
Yeah.
you got all-out lies, and you have the fog of war. So you're not going to get the real story ever, or at least not any complete story. So it is all speculation. In my opinion, I've said this before, Zelensky's number one goal is not to get the Russians out of Ukraine. That's his number two goal. His number one goal is to get us in.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. And I agree. I agree.
And I worry very much about a false flag. I worry about
Yes.
him attacking one of his own nuclear plants and blaming Russia.
Yes.
Nothing that would leak tons of radiation, obviously. I don't think he's that much of a madman, but just something.
Enough to get a reaction for us to go in there and actually step on the ground and start fighting. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
All right. Anyway, so like I said, I could talk about this for hours, and to me, there is no more important issue than the Russia-Ukraine.
That is
period, in my opinion.
paramount right now because that's what's going to drag us into World War III. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. All right. So headline number 2. So
Let's do it.
this week, Mike, your friends the Israelis have been stepping up their attacks on Hezbollah,
Yeah.
and they bombed them pretty hard,
Yes, they did.
ostensibly in the name of killing Hezbollah leaders.
Yeah, and they did. They killed quite a few of them.
From what we're told, yes,
Yeah.
they did.
Oh, from the reporting, we're being told that they hit the top guy and
Yes.
a bunch of generals and stuff.
Now, much like with Ukraine, most people felt Ukraine was the victim, right? So
Yeah.
In the beginning, and sided with them. With Israel, October 7th?
October 7th,
October
yeah.
7th. No normal person in the world could have watched that and not said, Israel, do what you got to do right now.
Exactly.
But-
it's now over.
Hezbollah did not attack them. Hamas did. They're attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon. Lebanon is a sovereign country.
Yes.
Is this a escalation? Is this something Israel has the right to do, in your opinion? What's your thoughts on that?
So they went after the Gaza, right? They went after the Hamas guys. They annihilated the Hamas crew. They really did.
Seems that way, yeah.
And then you got the Hezbollah guys. They inserted themselves in this a few months back. They were rattling the saber the entire time Israel's been in Gaza since October 7th. They've been rattling that saber. But they really truly put themselves in the crosshairs a few months back by starting to launch missiles into Israel. And you're launching missiles into a country at a time where their entire focus is on destroying their enemies, and you just put a big target on yourself. So, and Israel responded. They responded, and I'm not gonna lie. I don't know that Israel's not gonna push in there on a ground war. I don't know. I'd like to say that they'll bomb those guys and leave it alone, which would probably be what the best course of action would be to do. Okay, you've done what you had to do. You took out the head of that organization. You've decapitated them. Step back now. That would be the reasonable thing to do. But the way Israel's been kind of, staging things and doing things lately, I don't know that they will. I would not be surprised to see Israel launch an incursion into Lebanon on the ground.
Oh, I agree 1,000%.
I would not be surprised.
But what do you think, just specifically before we delve deeper into this, just in general, do we have the right to do this? Is this something they should be doing? Is this
I think they had the
strategically
right,
good?
and I think it was strategically smart to bomb them, to bomb back, to go back and fight back to all those missile launch sites, to all those places where this is being coordinated to attack them. I think it was smart to do that because it kind of takes out, it removes, a distraction from the main focus, which is Gaza right now, because their primary focus is ending, Hamas. So Hezbollah was kind of taken as an opportunity to kind of hit from the side. So you're taking out the idiot on the side that's trying to strike you while you're trying to deal with the main opponent, So I think hitting them was smart. It sends a very clear message, and it also strategically, you're taking out their ability to wage war against you. So you've kind of limited your opponents in a way, right?
So you're citing the Bush Doctrine.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to limit your opponents. But I mean, listen, that's a pretty clear. If I'm fighting two guys and I can take one guy out of the fight right away, so much the better.
No, I mean what you just said about taking them out before they hit. So because Israel perceives them as an existential threat,
Well, they
take
did
them
hit
first.
Well, they did hit though. They were
Oh,
launching
they've been
missiles.
throwing missiles into Tel Aviv
Yeah.
for 30 years, yeah.
Yeah, but they were done for a while. There was a big lull in that. There wasn't a problem recently, and recently there wasn't. And then once they started fighting Hamas, I think Hezbollah felt like, oh, this is our opportunity to get in this fight. I mean, Hezbollah is nothing more than Iran proxy anyway, so nobody's surprised by that. But
that's no secret, sure.
Yeah, no, everybody knows that. So I mean, I think it's just kind of like Israel sending a message, a very clear message, both to Iran and the rest of the world, like we are done sitting here taking this shit.
Okay.
But I don't think them doing a land war there would be smart, because now you really are dividing your forces and pushing them into various areas. I mean, that's a
they're
big.
Probably strong enough to do it. I mean, they're
definitely
badass.
Now listen, it's not about. I mean, they're definitely strong enough to do it, and they have the numbers. Don't get me wrong, but it just becomes that much more of a quagmire, because now you've got that much more territory to worry about, to have to maintain, to have to police, to have to rotate troops in and out of. It becomes more involved. The bigger it gets, the harder it becomes. To kind of manage your resources. Whereas if you could focus in one arena only, you're much better off with that, because you can limit your casualties that way, and you can increase the amount of, precision on who you're trying to get,
I mean, fair enough. My reaction, I'm going to say the same thing about Netanyahu that I said about Zelensky. I am pretty convinced that he wants America at war with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just pretty convinced of that.
Without a doubt.
And listen, again, if you gun to my head, whose side am I on? Israel's. I mean that
Which doesn't mean you agree with everything they do.
But let's be real here. Let's keep this 100. All right. More civilians have died at the hands of the Israelis in the last 6 months than at the hands of Russians and Ukrainians combined over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people dying.
A lot of
and I
damage.
know what people are going to say. Well, they use them as human shields. First of all, everybody does. Okay, the Ukrainians hide their weapons and have their high-level meetings in shopping malls and pizzerias. They don't put it out there in the open with a big sign that says, high-level meeting at Ammo Depot over
Zelensky here.
Bomb, I mean, everybody does that to an extent. Obviously, we're not dealing with, what's going on with Israel is an asymmetrical war, so you're dealing with organizations, not necessarily state military operate. So it's harder for them.
It's a little bit
get
different.
it.
Yeah, it's a guerrilla war.
Right.
Yeah.
So I get it, and I get their issues. But I think what's happened is, again, with Joseph Robinette Biden, I think he's allowed Ukraine and Israel just to act with impunity and know that they are never going to lose our backing. Now, Biden will talk a little bit, and he'll threaten them or whatever, but I think that's just to placate
the base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't mean it, because if he meant it, he would do it, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't. He's keeping those weapons going in. And again, gun to my head, just like with Ukraine, I think Ukraine was the victim. Gun to my head, I think Israel's the victim. But that doesn't mean that everything that happens from that point forward is justified.
When you could be absolved of any sin
Right.
from it, right?
So October 7th, I get it. That was their 9/11.
We would have been, well, look what we did for 9/11, right?
We did. I mean, yes, and we made mistakes too. Going into Iraq, I think, was a mistake.
1 million civilians dead in Iraq.
Yeah, so these are not small. And I get it, because I understand they lost their shit after 9/11. Just like after October 7th, just like we lost our shit after 9/11.
Yeah.
But I do think that, I don't think we lost our shit to the extent that they're losing their shit now. And I think at some point, whether it's Netanyahu or Zelensky, they have to understand that the support is not infinite. And that you can't just do anything you want, anytime you want, and we're always going to have your back. And I think that's what both of them think, and I think that's why they do what they do. And we've never had a president that has given carte blanche to Israel and just said, we will. I mean, even Bush in the 2000, I think it was 6 or 7 when they had the war with Hezbollah.
Yeah.
I remember Condoleezza Rice on TV all the time saying, it's got to stop, it's got to stop, it's got to stop. I just think this is too much, Mike. It's just what I'm saying. It's just too much. Too many people are dying, and I truly believe Zelensky wants us at war with Russia, and I truly believe Bibi wants us at war with Iran. And I think both of them are going to do whatever they can to get us into that situation, and I think they're getting closer and closer to achieving their goals. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's sad.
Because it's insanely ridiculous how we're being dragged along honestly by a weak administration.
It is.
That's empowering the whole thing.
Well,
You're absolutely right. I think
it
you
depends
nailed
what
it.
you mean by weak. I mean, in a sense, they're strong. They're allowing this to happen.
What's the weakness? A real strength, right? a real tough guy, right? And I've known a lot of really tough men, and 90% of you out there don't even have a clue what tough is, much less are tough, okay? Because I'm telling you right now, you're not. Okay, but I've known the real tough guys. I've known the real operators, the ones who can do things that most of you wouldn't even imagine, much less think possible. Those guys are calm, they're deliberate, they're reasonable.
When not to fight.
You know, and they're not going to pick a fight. And if it comes to a fight, they're going to do everything possible to avoid that fight. To them, that is the last possible thing that should happen, because they know themselves, and they know when that they get to the point where they have to fight, they are going to unleash unholy hell on you.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to hurt you. That's what they do. They hurt you. You know, and that's why they try to avoid it at any cost. And you get people like you know, these politicians like Biden or anybody else's administration or in any administration that doesn't understand these things or just doesn't care. You know, there are real people dying on both sides.
Yes,
of this thing.
exactly.
These are very real. This is very real. These are families being torn apart, communities being destroyed. That's the worst possible thing that could happen.
And look at how they do. You know, you just said that. It popped into my head just this week when Zelensky was here to get another $6 billion or whatever he got.
Pennsylvania.
He's in Pennsylvania with Shapiro, like a fucking 5-year-old. Now listen, he's not the first to do that, all right? Jerry Seinfeld did that over in Israel a few years back. That is barbaric. All right, no matter how much you think your enemy is wrong, I mean, open up the Bible, man. You can fight your enemy, but you also have to love your enemy. You know, you can't make a mockery of this and put your signature on a missile that may kill civilians, may put people out of their homes. It's not a fucking joke. It's not a joke.
But to them it is, because they're so far removed from the reality of what it means to do these things that they can joke about it.
To them it's a video game. Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, you're signing this and then talking about how good this is for the economy of Pennsylvania. Again, no matter what you think of Russians or Vladimir Putin, these are still, somebody's kids.
They're people. They're raising families.
Yeah,
These are people. They're normal people. They eat, they sleep, they shit. They're normal friggin' people.
Right, and their mother or their wife is going to miss them when that missile hits them.
Yeah. Listen, I like, the American military, right? We have a military that is unlike any other in the world. When it comes to combined arms, when it comes to precision strikes, there's nobody that can do what we can do. It is unbelievably impressive. And I'm telling you from experience, it is impressive. They will pick one guy off in a damn market full of thousands of people every time. It's impressive. It's friggin' good. But that's the point. We do that. Nobody else does that. So when all these munitions in Pennsylvania or wherever else are being made, they're just indiscriminate. A missile doesn't know what it's killing. It doesn't care. It just
and they
goes
go off,
where they tell it.
By the way, they
explodes.
go off course sometimes.
All the time.
Okay, and sometimes they get shot down and the fragments come down and kill people. I understand it's a war, but it's not a fucking joke. It's not a cartoon, and they've turned this into a cartoon. And by the way, Bibi is also at the UN the other day calling the entire world anti-Semitic because not everybody is backing them. It's not, it's
not
crazy.
Anti-Semitism.
It's not anti-Semitism.
It's humanism. It's saying, listen, you know what? Listen, if you're a faithful person, okay, if you're a person of any faith, I don't care what faith it is you celebrate, if you're a person of any faith, the very first tenet in that faith should be a regard and respect for life, right? That's like the basis of faith, of any faith.
And I get it that they didn't start. I'll stipulate that again, just like Ukraine. They didn't start it, but it doesn't mean it becomes a cartoon. It doesn't mean it becomes a joke. You don't sign missiles and smile for the cameras. This is real life and death. Josh Shapiro lives in, Harrisburg, and he has this nice little life. Yeah. Good for him. But Zelensky should know better. He should know better.
Zelensky's a puppet and a psychopath. I don't think he has any.
But he should know better. He does know better. He sees people who are dying.
Listen, he's sitting there. He's got to be looking at those reports of the casualties every day, right? He's got to be seeing the numbers of his army counts.
Of course.
Of how many he lost and how many he needs now to replace those guys or girls. In that case, because he's using both.
All right.
Awful.
Let's move on.
Stop the dying. Trump is right about that. Stop the damn dying.
He's 100% right. And, you're allowed to disagree with the way Ukraine or Israel is prosecuting their wars, even if you believe that they are the victims of it. You're still allowed to disagree. But, we ostracize any country that says anything against either one of those countries, and it blows my mind. It just blows my mind. Anyway, I don't want to... We're already 24 minutes in. All right, third one. This is from Axios. This is a different topic altogether. Share of young American men... America's youngest voters turn to the right. share of young American men who say they identify with select political ideologies. You have more 18 to 24-year-olds identifying as conservative than liberal by 4 percentage points, whereas 25 to 29, it's the opposite. So the younger cohort, the ones just coming up now, 18 to 24, the ones who just getting the right to vote, just coming in, have flipped the next cohort down as far as conservative and liberal. So it says, I'll just read you one paragraph because it's a headline, not the whole thing. A new trend has emerged in American politics. The very youngest voters, 18 to 24-year-old, say they are more conservative than the cohort that's just older, according to the latest Harvard Youth poll. Mm-hmm. Surprised?
No.
Really?
No. So
elaborate.
So you have these young men, right, that are coming up, through high school, last year's junior high school. First of all, they've had to see their parents start to struggle under the this economy that came in with the Biden-Harris administration. Mm-hmm. On top of that, they're seeing Ukraine on fire. They're seeing the Middle East on fire. They're seeing the bungled with Afghanistan withdrawal. They're seeing all these things. Now, these are young men that are coming of age and realizing that if A, they decide to join the military, or B, things really go sideways, they're going to be in the military, right or not. That's going to resonate with them. They're going to understand very quickly the world, because fear is an excellent motivator, right? We all know that, And I think that the fear that's being generated by the ineptitude of this administration is starting to seep into everyday life for a lot of people, and that's starting to actually kind of make people wake up, They're kind of having to take a closer look, not just read the headline, but actually read the article, right? And actually start to take a closer look at what's really happening. And this generation coming up, with my own kids, I can tell you, I see it myself with my own kids. I have kids in that age range, and and they're really more and more kind of going right in that sense, Whereas before, I would think they were probably more like kind of in the middle, or maybe even left a little bit. They're starting to go right in that sense, just because they're starting to see the realities of the world and how really ugly it is, and how really ugly it's going to get if it keeps going that way. So I think that's what you're seeing, is that kind of cultural shift where people are starting to kind of wake up. At least this young generation is starting to wake up to the lies.
Interesting. Me personally, I'm not surprised. I'm just surprised how quickly. I not knew, but I expected this would happen eventually, because young people are just counter, right? They're rebellious. They counter whatever the norm is.
Yeah, whatever the ruling.
Right. So at some point,
you're going to have the blowback against the left.
It had to be, right? It had to be. I'm surprised it happened this quickly, because this is still the same generation, right? The 18 to 24-year-olds are the same generation as the 24 to 30. They're all Gen Z.
Yeah.
I didn't think you'd see a rebellion that quickly, but I'm not surprised that there is a rebellion, because that's just what young people do. They go against the norm, and they've seen, you're right, these are the ones who have grown up. I don't know how much they pay attention to current events, and I hope you're right, and they do. I think it might just be more cultural. I think they're the ones who start to have it up to here with, the gender crap going all the time.
Well, because being forced on their throat.
Exactly. And at some point, like I said, young people do rebel. I'm just surprised it happened this quickly. But listen, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Good. What do you guys think? Do you have your nephew, by the way? I'll never forget this. You're my oldest son. I don't want to say their names. His first year in college, which was about 6 years ago. Both of my sons told me that a lot of the stuff that we talk about and we see and we think about college, they both tell me not really. Especially my younger one. He says no professor ever talks about Trump. And he's in his third year now. And he says very rarely do the kids even talk about politics. So maybe it is overblown a little bit, but when your older nephew was starting college, that had to be 6 years ago. And I remember we were eating dinner, and yes, we do talk about politics at the dinner table, like I mentioned in the last video.
We do here too, yeah.
I was asking him, all the orientation and everything, it was all that kind of stuff that we see, And I remember him saying to me, and I wanted to hug him because he was so smart. He said, Dad, they think they're turning me into a liberal, but all they're doing is making me more conservative.
Sure.
And that's what I mean. They rebel, right?
Yeah. I've heard that. I've heard both sides of that political as well, yeah. So,
all right. Anyway,
point, though.
Listen, if you guys have kids in that cohort, 18 to 24, let us know.
What are you seeing? What do you think?
And their friends, because if you guys are conservative, the odds are your kids that age might be, I don't know. But what about their friends? Tell us what your experiences are with that particular age group, 18 to 24? You think they're moving more to the right? I mean, Axios has data, from that Harvard poll, but who knows?
We'll see. Let us know in the comments. Tell us what you think.
Please. All right, Mike, headline number 4.
What do we got?
So, when they're vetting for when presidential candidates are vetting for potential vice presidential running mates.
Yep.
They keep what would basically be called a dossier, right?
Of course, yeah. You got
pros,
the person profile, yeah.
This is what the person said 6 years ago. This is what they said 8 years ago, whatever.
Sure.
Normal, 100%. It's out there somewhere. So apparently it was, the Trump campaign was hacked. They're immediately blaming it on Iranians. We don't know, but maybe. Who knows? Was hacked, and the dossier on J.D. Vance was hacked. In other words, all the things the Trump campaign had written down about J.D. Vance, the positives, the negatives, and everything. It was out there. Now, the media refused to publish it, because apparently there's been a big change in media doctrine, that they've all agreed after the last couple of elections, anything brought to light supposedly being hacked by foreign entities,
they won't bring it into.
They will not.
Okay, yeah.
Now, someone named, let me get his name right, Ken Kippelstein, did post it on his Substack, and he was immediately banned from X by Elon. His account was banned by X. Meta refused to put the links up there. So the social media sites, for the most part, and the media companies out there are following this new rule that they've made. It's just their own.
It's internal to them, right? Yeah.
That if it's published by nefarious actors,
they don't want to publish it. Yeah.
So a two-part question to you. Number one, what do you think of that? All right. Do you think that that's a good thing or not? Number two, what do you think of this guy Ken Kippelstein? I'm sorry. Posting this, there was nothing salacious in it. It was just normal stuff, J.D. Vance talked
about the normal stuff.
There were some things that the opposite side could have used, but this is just normal. Anyway, so what do you think of that hacking, and what do you think of this kind of self-censorship by the media and social media sites about this sort of a thing?
I mean, the hacking, it doesn't surprise me. I think that's been going on for a while. We keep hearing about this, right? The DNC server, whatever, everything else. But as far as them self-regulating, not such a bad thing, I guess, necessarily, because they're trying to kind of maintain some kind of, some kind of like order in the way things are done. So if you don't enable people to do bad things, then it makes bad things less likely to be, right? That's kind of the idea I think they have, and I think that's kind of I agree with it. I think it's not a bad thing necessarily. If they all get together and they agree on something like that, and then somebody like, say, Substack says this guy published on his own page, he's allowed, whatever.
Yeah, he was. Substack didn't ban.
Yeah,
but then in response, Meta and Facebook,
they blocked it. But you can still go find this guy on Substack and say, "Oh, I can go read it there."
Yes, you can. It's out there. But they blocked his accounts because of it. And,
right. They're within their rights, obviously.
And the newspapers like the Times, the Post, they won't publish it.
I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. I think it would be dishonest. I think it would be like you're enabling a criminal act. Honestly, to me, it's like you're enabling a criminal act. It's not like some investigative journalist went out there and actually dug this information up and put in the real work to understand this and put it in the right context. Somebody behind a keyboard committed a criminal act to access information they weren't allowed to have, to then take that information and put it out to the world in some way to try and hurt that campaign or whatever it might be. I don't disagree with what they're doing, necessarily.
All right. I don't know how I feel, to be honest with you.
It's hard, because it kind of almost touches on that censorship side of things, and you're like, eh.
See, so if the New York Times went and hacked Trump's account and put it out there, that, to me, would be a step too far. But once somebody else has done it, I think it's almost the press's duty, if it's newsworthy. If it's newsworthy. To
kind of put it out there.
To put it out there. So I don't know how I feel about it. I guess I'm glad that they understood that what happened with the Steele dossier and all of that, they shouldn't have done. But by the same token,
it seems like maybe they're learning a lesson,
I think I see both sides of it, to be honest with you. I think in one
way... I do
way,
too. That's why I said it's kind of hard to say, like, you kind of have to hedge it almost, because you're like, I get it.
Yeah, and I
get
looked
it.
at it. There was really nothing, like I said, nothing salacious. There was nothing like, he had an affair on his wife or anything like that. Which I guarantee you they would have published. It's still that. I guess maybe it was because
they could hurt them, they would have done it. Yeah.
I guess maybe it was because it wasn't salacious. They decided
It's
all of a
like,
sudden
it's not really worth our effort, and it gives us a chance to virtue signal about moral.
But there was some interesting things in there. The Trump campaign, anyway, seems to view Vance as an isolationist. They were a little upset that he was against the 2017 tax cuts, things like that. So, but I think that's good. I mean, obviously they have to vet, they have to see what's out there. I don't know. Look, time will tell if he was the right pick or not. Who knows?
Sure.
But I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about it, but I think it's an interesting topic. Anyway, the guy's name is Ken Kippelstein.
If you
want to go on his Substack and look, it's nothing crazy. Just seems to me kind of normal stuff.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
All right, last one. Something a little fun.
Okay.
All right, so right now, I am missing the Alabama-Georgia game to do this with you, so you better be grateful. It's a big one. All right, anyway, any SEC matchup like that is big. So for all you Southerners out there, roll Tide or go Dogs, whatever the hell you guys say down there. Alabama versus Georgia. Guess who's going to be there tonight?
Kamala Harris?
No, she'd get booed out of that stadium.
Trump.
Trump's going to be there, and I don't know if this is true or not. We'll find out. The game's still going on right now. Apparently, the Harris campaign, rented a plane to fly one of those banners over the stadium that says, and it's a football game, so it's kind of clever, Trump punts on second debate.
Trying to call him out.
Kind of like trolling him a little bit. He's going to be at the game. He's going to get a big round of applause down there, I would assume.
Oh, yeah. Down south, yeah, they love him.
Sure. Kind of clever by Harris' campaign, I guess. What do you think of that? Just kind of a fun thing.
That's smart. I mean, listen, if I was the opposing candidate, I would do the same thing. I think it's very smart. If they actually do it, it's a smart play on their part. Because it gives you kind of a humorous little jab at the other side without being too, awful. But it gets a lot of attention, right? It makes her seem like, oh, look, she's making a joke. She's jabbing on him a little bit. Oh, it's, it makes her more personable in some way. So
yeah, it's a cute move. I mean,
it's smart.
It's a cute move. It got smart attention. Even if it doesn't happen, it already got attention. It was.
That's just it. Sometimes you don't even need the actual action, just the thought of it.
But to get a little bit deeper now, what about Trump punting on this second debate? You think he should do one or
no? I don't think he should do one.
No.
What are you going to get? She's only going to do the second debate if it's on this channel with these particular you're going to
get
him
too.
You're going to get the same. You're going to get the same. Same routine you had the last time. You're not going to get. I just don't think that in the current environment that debates are really going to be done fairly at all. I just feel like because it's either going to be one side or the other controlling it, and it's going to be lopsided, unfortunately, because we have. Not a lot of people are willing to go in there and be legitimate moderators and let them beat each other up, which is what they're supposed to do. You're what you said was 100% right? So if me and you are debating, your job is to fact check me, not, Lauren if she's sitting here being the moderator, right? But I think even if they go to Fox, you'll have the Fox moderators trying to fact check her, which they will. They'll go after her more.
I would hope not.
I would hope not too. I'd want to see it done fairly and honestly. But I think because of, the salaciousness of it and wanting to get more views and clicks on their media, they would do that because it gets them more, you know what I mean? So I just don't see it being done fairly right now, so I don't blame them for punting on it because really at this point, we're less than 40 days away.
And they're already voting. I mean, there's already
you're not swaying anybody right now.
Yeah.
They're fighting for the middle to a certain degree, but I mean, I think for the most part, the lines are mostly drawn, and most people pretty much know who they're going to vote for. Whether they admit it or not, I think most people know who they're voting for.
Listen, if debates were like they were, 30 years ago, we talked about this when the League of Women Voters ran it and everything. I would say the more the merrier. At this,
sure.
I just think
I like debates.
I think presidential debates and primary debates have just become such a joke. Raise your hand if you agree with blah blah blah. You can't describe a policy by raising your hand. It's just,
no, not at all.
It's so stupid.
And that's what should be the primary focus of those debates is actually the understanding of and the implementation of that policy. What's it really going to do?
But I don't blame her for trying to portray him as avoiding a debate.
No, because it's an easy way to check on them.
Sure.
Yeah, it's an easy way to check on them, so of course.
And like I said, if they really do that with that banner tonight, it's a cute idea.
It's a good campaign, point,
You have anything else to say about that?
Nope, we're good.
All right, so let me just bring up one thing. We've argued quite a bit. I said I think the Harris campaign's smart.
To a certain degree, yeah. She has smart people on her staff.
I think they've really done something dumb here. The question that's been coming up over and over. Is this, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And the media have been asking her this every chance they get, which is not often, right? They've been hammering this now because I think they're sick of her avoiding that question, because her answer is, and obviously it's written down because all of her surrogates do this too.
Middle class.
Yes, exactly.
Blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
Like, it's all hopium nonsense.
Yes, and I think the media is getting fed up with this.
Yeah, they went after her.
And I think she's making a mistake by doing that. It was obviously a conscious decision by the campaign, right?
To be not
avoid the question.
Yep.
Just go into your middle class roots and I love my lawn and all of that crap that she does. If I was advising her, I would say answer that question yes. Do a typical thing a politician does and spin some numbers. Find something. Is the stock market higher now than it was 4 years ago? If it is, use that. Is unemployment lower now than it was 4 years ago? I don't know. Find 3 or 4 numbers that you can use to your advantage, and just use those and say, of course we're better off we are now. Look at the Dow Jones. Something, I don't know why they're not doing that. I think they're making a mistake.
They missed their off-ramp, right? So they had this nice, free, clear highway to run on. When she came into her campaign, Biden steps down, she comes in.
Right.
You have this hopium that comes with it. The media's all on board. Everybody's like, yeah, she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And she was coasting.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, she needed to come off that highway and actually start talking to policy and talking to these policy points and doing exactly what you said, spin the numbers, do all that stuff.
Just spin something, yeah.
Yeah, but she never did. So then fast forward to this past week or so, she had an MSNBC interview. And MSNBC is very far left.
Is it about the Stephanie Rule?
Yes. Very far left, right? They're very sympathetic to her cause, let's put it that way. And you could even see in that interview how frustrated that reporter, who's 100% going to vote for her and one of her supporters, that reporter was getting frustrated with her answers.
And she brought it up in the post-interview
yeah.
also. Yeah, so I think campaign...
And in the media, since that interview, not just her, but since that interview, the media has been just blasting her for that.
Yeah, well, even before that. And I think they made a mistake. Again, fatal mistake, I doubt it. I don't know if that's going to win or lose the election. But I think they made a mistake.
I don't think it sinks her ship.
No, but I think it hurts.
I think it hurts, but I don't think it sinks her ship.
I think it hurts because of 2 things. Number one, it makes her look like she can't answer a question. But even more importantly, it's almost implied by when she avoids that question, she's almost implying that
you're not better off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that really hurts her campaign. And I'm really surprised because I do think overall she's run a very smart campaign. This was dumb. I mean, whoever came up with this answer to, just talk about your middle class roots when this comes up, dumb. Like I said, find 3 numbers, because you could find stuff out there that's better now than 4 years ago.
You could twist any numbers. You could spin
find
anything.
Is the stock market higher now than it was 4 years ago? I would assume.
Yeah, it has its ups and downs, but yeah, I mean, you're doing overall. People doing overall.
So spin that. Say, the market's doing better or something, and just whatever. Anyway, whatever. It is what it is. We'll see. We got 40
Here's the thing
days
about
left.
that. You brought up an excellent point. I want to touch on it real quick.
Sure.
So, you have everyday Americans, right? We're living with those price increases. We're living with the ability to buy less food. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's a reality for everybody. So when she keeps avoiding that, right? Mm-hmm. That I don't care what side of the vote you're on. I guarantee you, there are a ton of people out there who normally would vote for her, who are now saying, "I'm feeling this. I know this is no good," and she's not even remotely answering that question. Yeah. I think that's going to be a death blow for her. I do. You know, you brought up an excellent point, and that clicked in my head when you started talking. You said that. I was like, that's exactly what it is. And I think that's going to be a death blow for her in a lot of ways. I do.
Yeah. I don't know if I go as far as death blow, but maybe. Who knows? Maybe. I definitely don't think it helps. I'll tell you. And it was the same thing with Biden, right? And this is one of the many reasons why this man is the most unpopular president in modern history. Because, yes, our economic infrastructure is sound. That's a fact. It's not like it was in 1931. It's not like it was in 2007. Our infrastructure is sound. But people, that doesn't matter. You can't tell people who are saying that they're paying $80 more a week for groceries than they did a couple of years ago, that just because our financial system is sound and the debt's not breaking us at the moment, it was just so stupid of Biden to tell people, no, the economy's good. You just don't understand. Which is basically what he and his surrogates did during the whole campaign. Oh, no, you feel like you feel, but, and by the way, a lot of the economy, right, when we talk about the economy, is perception.
Yeah, consumer confidence is huge in that.
If people feel the economy is bad, the economy is bad. That's all there is to it. And similar like with crime, right? You could bring out statistics that say crime is down here or crime is down there. If people don't feel safe in their neighborhood,
then crime is...
Those statistics don't mean a goddamn thing.
Yeah, because they don't feel safe. They're gonna vote for the guy that tells them, "I'm gonna make you feel safe again."
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the answer from a politician should never be, "You're not feeling what you're really feeling," or "You're not experiencing what you say you're experiencing." It's dumb, and it's one of the reasons why he is so unpopular. And I think it's gonna hurt her until she figures out a way to spin this and try to claim that
Her window's getting smaller and smaller, man. So she better figure it out real quick.
Yeah, it is.
That campaign will have to turn it around like today.
Yep.
If they really plan to get any kind of traction with that.
So, what do you guys think about that? And I wish we were live here. You could tell me the score of that Alabama-Georgia game, but it'll be over by the time you see
Soon
this.
enough, we'll be on live, all right? We'll do live one soon. We're almost there. We're getting there.
All right, Mike, tell them what to do.
Like, comment, subscribe, share, all those good things. Let us know what you think. Most importantly, comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you see.
And we do bring up comments in our videos.
We always bring them up. If they're... Listen, you could disagree with us. Absolutely. We kind of almost want you to, right? We want to hear the opposing views. We want to hear all different views.
Yeah, we
want to talk
disagree
about
with each
it.
other.
We want to hear things. We want to hear things discussed.
Sure.
Just, don't be rude. That's all we ask. Don't be disrespectful. If you're not disrespectful, we will bring up your comment. We'll discuss it. We'll make sure we go forward with it. Okay?
Yep.
So thank you guys so much for who already commented. Thank you for those of you guys who are watching us consistently. We appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, share. Let's get this conversation growing and bigger. And we'll see you on the next one.
And roll tide. Good night.
Good night, guys.